everybody, and welcome to this week's episode on Everyone's Stuck at Home. No, but for real though, welcome to this week's episode on the Player Ambassador live shows. We're going to be talking about the NCL gym and reverse engineering. We'll be talking about the NCL gym so we can help out all of the newcomers who don't know what's up, and we can tell you how exactly to use these different things to make your experience the best it can be. I have here joining me today, if I point, I'm thinking I'm pointing in the wrong direction, but it's Paul. Wave.
Hi.
Jacob. And Tristan. And they're going to help me talk about these topics. We have blog posts that we have written on both the NCL gym and reverse engineering. They can be found at Kate's blog, which is you can click on the green button at the very bottom of your screen, and it will take you to, I believe I linked it to the What is the National Cyber League Gym and How Do I Use It, written by our lovely Gina. If you haven't been on this platform before and don't know how to use it, there is a chat bar, which has been, or a chat box on the very side, which has been extremely active. Thank you guys very much. If you have any questions, you can either post them in there and we can move them to the question box, or at the very bottom of your screen, there's an Ask a Question section. You can type in a question there, and we will answer it throughout the stream. If you put it in there, we're able to record the sections, or not just record the sections, we are able to link it to the sections in the stream where we answer that question. So if you need to come back and reference this stream again, because it will be recorded and posted later, you can click on that question. It will take you to where we answered it, and I will do my best to make sure that they all actually line up. We also have a couple of polls. We're looking at how many seasons of the NCL people have played, and also how likely do you think that there's going to be someone's pet on stream? I don't actually know if the other three of these people have pets. I do. We're going to find out if I have a lap full of cat later. Who knows? As I think that is all of my introductory stuff. So why don't we start talking about the NCL gym and what it is? You probably, I'm pretty sure, everyone has perhaps seen it already. I think it's already open because the competition starts. Oh no, I should know this. Actually, every one of us should know this. However, point being,
none of us do.
However, none of us. I don't know dates off the top of my head. It's fine. The important part is that people are going to be logging into the gym now and taking a look, taking a nice gander at what all is in there. So what are the things that, I'm going to pick on one of you. Paul, when using the NCL gym, what are the things that you focus the most on? Or what do you find really useful about using the gym environment?
Usually there are enough challenges that you can divide it up and focus on different things for different aspects. So if there's a category with which you have a hard time, you may want to take notes. Do we publish guides for gym challenges now? Are they in the actual platform?
The guides for the gym challenges are in the platform.
Right. So that's relatively new, I think. But you can take notes on your strategy and include the steps where you made mistakes or hit a dead end, and you can go back and analyze that later. It doesn't matter if you enter wrong answers in the gym because it's not actually part of the competition. It's just practice. So this is your opportunity to figure out how the platform works, practice. For areas in which you're more comfortable, you may want to practice your accuracy, your time management, other skills that are tangential to the actual challenges, but that are important if you're trying to rank high. Although most people probably won't be worrying about that. But if that's something that interests you, now's a good time to practice it. All right.
Yeah.
Anyone else have anything to say about it? I'm trying to open it up so I can screen share it to everyone.
Yeah. So what I usually do, I take it as an opportunity to just kind of refresh myself. And some of these things I don't do on a daily basis at work. So log analysis is one that I don't do every day. So when the gym opens up, I always like to go back remember how to do log analysis properly. So when the real season comes around, I'm ready for it. So if there's category that you don't do in the off season, that's what I always start with.
Can we quickly clarify what the gym is?
Yeah. So the gym is a place where you get to try out a bunch of different challenges of the different topics that are going to be found in the actual NCL competition. It doesn't cover everything, but it has a very wide range of things that you're able to try, like open source intelligence or cryptography, scanning, log analysis, network traffic analysis. This is really important for some of those topics that you're not, like, for example, if you're a newbie, you've probably never heard of before. For example, network traffic analysis can be rough even on the best of days. So taking these 5 challenges and then going through them and, with some trial and error, figuring out how to use these different tools, or, just basic literacy on how to read a PCAP. We have talked about that before in previous live shows, but like it can be difficult. I personally stand by that. But and as we mentioned before, not only do you have access to these challenges, but I'm going to see if I'm looking at it. Can I share my screen without everything? Oh, wait. Oh, there's no more seats left in this event. Remove a seat if you want to. I have to remove one of you if I want to share my screen? That's the worst. Anyone want to take one for the team?
Well, before we continue, I just want to clarify that for those of you who are completely new to NCL, each season is divided up into different stages. So there's the gym, which opens up first. Then there is the preseason, what do we call it? The individual competition? Is that what we call it now?
Yeah.
And then the team competition, all of which take place separately. The gym is not ranked. I don't think it appears on your scouting report. It is for you to just take a look at NCL, especially if it's your first time, see what the platform looks like, figure out how everything works without actually being ranked. Complete test run.
Yes.
All right.
I can actually pop it up on screen, and I haven't answered anything, so there's no okay, I'm gonna remove one of you. Sorry. Allow me to share my screen, sir. Sir, please. Screen 2. Share it. Oh, well, we're gonna hold on. We're gonna bring him back. You want to know why? Because as it turns out, I can't share my screen because MacBooks have weird sharing permissions. So I shan't, actually.
I would offer to share mine, but I don't have access to it yet.
Well, you should. Well, that's perhaps bad. What I'm going to do is I'm just gonna link where it is to everyone in the chat. So if you've already signed up, you should have access to this to the gym. So here you go. It should be on your dashboard. It should be the first thing you see. Quick access, practice gymnasium. You can go in there and you can start trying out challenges. If you have questions about different challenges, we have previously done live shows on these things that can be found like in the schedule. If you are here, you've probably navigated to the NCL's Crowdcast page. The rest of them will be listed there. But yeah, so the gym is really important to like getting your skills back up to date, even for people who like have done the competition before, because like someone said earlier, you don't necessarily use reverse engineering all that often, which is a sticking point for a lot of people, myself included. And that is also something we're going to be talking about. So, Jacob, do you want to talk a little bit about reverse engineering, what exactly it is, and how people generally go about doing it, the tools that they might use.
Sure. So reverse engineering, the broad category, is taking some sort of program or code and figuring out what it does, what are the outputs, answering relevant questions on how it works. And you do all of that without any documentation. You just have the code or the program in front of you, and it's your job to figure out what's it doing. It can be as simple as static code analysis of a Python program, or it could be more complicated and be a compiled program where you can't just see the code plain text. It's all compiled, so you have to use a decompiler to view it. So some of the tools for the static just analysis of JavaScript or Python, you just use a text editor is what I do. So you can just look at the code. And for this category, Google is your friend, as in most things in IT. So if you don't know something, when I started out doing reverse engineering, any sort of operation that I didn't know what it did, you just highlight it, copy it, and Google it. Figure out what the ORD function in Python does. If you don't know offhand, Google it. It'll tell you right away. And you start piecing together how the program works. And then as you get into the more advanced stuff, for the compiled things, you can do static analysis with a decompiler like Ghidra, or active runtime analysis with something like GDB. So what are some other tools other people use? Those are the two that I use for the binaries.
The ones, okay, I've used. Now I'm trying to remember the name of it, but there is, I think it's some kind of like Java decompiler for when you get those.
JODX. Yeah, JDX.
Yes, probably. There's Java and Python decomilers. So if you're not really good at the like active or live code analysis that GDB does, you're able to decompile the code and read it in plain text, and then hopefully get an idea of what it's doing. That's generally what I do, because I never learned how to use GDB effectively. I want to. I genuinely do want to. If anyone can teach me, God bless, but I cannot do it.
Install PwnDGB.
Yes, that's exactly what I was about to say. Yeah,
that'll make
what's it called?
PwnDGB. So like Pwn debug. It just makes like it just like adds a little bit of functionality that makes GDB like slightly more usable. Like it'll print out all your registers, your stack, and your heap. I think it prints out the heap. Yeah. I don't know for sure on that one, but it'll print out like that stuff for you instead of you having to run the commands whenever you hit a breakpoint. It's just a little things that kind of make it a bit more usable.
You know what's really funny is when I Google searched that, the link was purple, which means I definitely looked at it before. I've done my research. I just don't know how to do it.
So some people in chat have mentioned a bunch of tools.
Yeah.
Which are really useful.
I saw Radare. Whoever said that, like, they get a thumbs up. I like myself some Radare.
Yeah.
I'm still learning how to use that, but I like that it has Vim-style key bindings.
That's the best part.
I'm a Vim fan.
Me too. I'm the weird person who still uses Vim for it has a learning curve.
So if you're just getting started with reverse engineering, strings is actually a good starting point. That's easy enough to use.
Yeah.
Hex arrays was mentioned, so that would be IDA and IDA Pro. You can't use IDA Pro in NCL, no paid software. Two tools that I like, but that I don't think are technically allowed in NCL, but if you're learning on your own, you can use are Binary Ninja and Hopper, both of which are a lot of fun, and the interface is a little more friendly and easier to learn than IDA. And then there are a bunch of other tools here that I think are mostly command line based, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I tend not to use binwalk or object dump too much, but strings is a good starting point.
Binwalk is good if you're doing like embedded firmware. Or binwalk's also really good for Stego.
Yeah.
Mm.
Object dump is good if you just want to get some quick disassembly, but it doesn't give you a whole bunch of context. It'll also, like you can do some extraction with it.
7-zip. Don't underestimate 7-zip. You can extract just about anything with 7-zip.
Yeah.
What is 7-zip?
Oh, all right. So you've probably heard of something like WinRAR or WinZip, right?
Yeah.
Those are the tools of the past. These days we use 7-zip. It's free and it can extract anything.
Okay. I'm gonna just you guys are just gonna keep saying things. I'm just gonna keep linking it in the chat.
You can right click on an exe, choose extract, and it will pull out all the icons or whatever else is embedded in there.
Like if you've got even a Word document, you can extract things out of
It'll
that.
figure out how to extract stuff from it.
Because Word docs are just zip files.
You got the new one.
Yeah,
new
like
ones,
Yeah, that's how that works.
With fancy XML. Oh, and same thing with Android APKs, Java jar files. They're just fancy zip file.
Yep.
Oh my god, I'm now forgetting how much I use zip for reverse engineering.
Right.
Yeah.
So there was this article on Hacker News recently, which is a news site by Y Combinator. And they have it was this long article about someone who basically bought a fake SD card, recorded something important to it, and then couldn't get the files off. So he imaged the whole SD card and was going through all this reverse engineering to try to figure out how the file system had been corrupted. And it turns out all he needed to do was right click on it with 7-zip and choose extract. That was the solution. All these data recovery experts were like looking at the hex dumps, trying to figure it out. Nope, right click extract.
There wasn't like any like artifacts for like 7-zip headers? Or,
it got it all. That's all I know.
I know.
That is
awesome.
Yeah, never underestimate simple tools.
I forget how much I use zip because like I was doing some like Android reverse engineering because for like I have like these Jake LED lights that are controlled over Bluetooth. And like it has this god awful like sketch Android app. And I was like reverse engineering it. And I just forget how much I just type unzip for a thing.
Yep. That only covers zip files though. 7-zip covers the kitchen sink.
Yeah.
apparently.
I've seen a few people mention like hex-based stuff. So I actually use Hex Editor a lot if I want to change something in some sort of compiled program. It takes knowledge of base 64 CPU instructions, but some good decompilers can give you the addresses and instructions that correspond to the actual code. So if you want to, if there's some sort of jump or sleep that you don't want it to do that, you can use a hex editor to go in there and put what's called a no-op slide. So it's no operation. You basically blank out that section where maybe it's an if statement that's giving you trouble in this program. You can no-op that, and it just doesn't check and just moves on to the code inside of that statement. So hex editors are very good.
I feel kind of guilty because I use Radare, which actually has a really, really awesome way of doing binary patching. That like you can type in the assembler instructions you want to type out instead of having to memorize the hex codes. Yeah, it's awesome. Like Radare can do amazing things. You just have to put forth the time to learn it, and it's a lot of time. There's some people like asking what firmwares are, and I'd like to like kind of clarify it. Firmware is just software that will ship with a device or software that runs a device. It doesn't necessarily have to be an operating system. A lot of embedded firmware is going to be based on Linux. So like, it's not the operating system, but it's the software that ships with the device to make it work, but it's not necessarily at a kernel level.
Usually it's something, it's a little ambiguous, but usually it's something that's running closer to the hardware than what you would typically call software. But usually it's still, these days, actually software. That's not always the case, but more or less.
Unless you're messing with like baseband chips. Well, no, there are some basebands that run Linux. I should take that back. But that's still really... Yeah, it's not fun. Well, it is fun, but...
We know. We get it. So you were talking a little bit about Radare. And you said it takes a lot of time to learn how to use it. Are there any specific places that you found were particularly helpful when trying to learn how to, get it to work? Places like, besides just the straight up manual, were there places that you went to explain like its functionality?
On their website, they have a Radare book, they call it, which I kind of hit up sometimes. Also, and like once you get past that, like if you get really confused, there's a little like, you can start to type out the command and you can hit a question mark, hit enter, and it'll tell you all the other options that you can build off of that. And it's definitely based on a like memory economic type like binding. So like you kind of like think like print display functions. Yeah, because PDF or no, print disassembly of the current functions PDF. And then I don't know. I need to be at a keyboard and typing to do this off the top of my head.
That's fair. You don't. You don't. Yeah. Let's just make you like code out loud.
Oh
this
God.
This is now a Google job interview.
Okay. I hope it's not JVM stuff.
So once you kind of get more literate with like Radare and all of these different things, reverse engineering really does take a lot of time because it's just so time intensive as you're trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Pardon my French. So do you have any specific like tools or things that you do to make RE go faster?
I specifically with like, I've been doing it a lot because I've been messing with malware a lot lately. Putting in the time to do scripting, like it works so much better. It like helps you get to points in the program faster. It, like specifically on like Windows, which I don't know if we've had Windows challenges. We should have them at some point. But like I'll have like a script in my Geezer scripts, which you can do in Python, which is awesome. And like I'll have it go through all of the DLLs and look at what imports there are and then where those functions are being called from. So
before you go any further, for the people who don't necessarily know, what is a DLL?
A DLL is a file similar to an executable, but it holds functions that a program can call. It stands for Dynamically Linked Library, I believe. It's the Windows version of, if you're familiar with Linux, shared objects. Which
okay.
is kind of the same thing.
So you're talking about have it go through all the DLLs. What other kind of things do you have it script to make it go faster? Like are these things that can be used very broadly, or do they have to be very specific to each each challenge you do?
I will have it be in a very like broad scenario for like malwares. I will have like a lot of network functions. I'll have some of the low level functions that I know are associated with process injection. So like any debugging functions. I'll also have a lot of people will search for XOR a lot because that's generally a sign that you're going to be messing with code that's either doing encryption at some point in time or modifying itself during runtime to be like, so like it's a common thing to have like a shellcode buffer that's your actual like your actual malware that you have encrypted, and like a lot of times people will be lazy and just do that with XOR, which is really easy to get past. And
I don't think we've seen that much, if at all, in NCL though.
That was one of my WeSys challenges.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm so sad we didn't get around to those.
I am too. That was my big like RE challenge that I wrote, was that it was that. And
Yeah, well, you know what? We will always have your expertise for future things.
So we've covered some of the native reverse engineering and the really hard stuff, but probably most of the people who are joining us today are going to be interested in some of the easier and medium challenges. So what do we usually see for those?
I can talk about those because those are generally the only ones that I can get through. RE is hard. I actually wrote my blog on this one specifically. It's called Turning That Code Inside Out, a look at reverse engineering. And essentially what I was talking about are the Python challenges, where it's not reverse engineering in the traditional sense. It's you're looking at a piece of code and you're figuring out how it works, which is really this first step of reverse engineering, but you generally aren't able to do it in just plain text. They'll give you in this case, I was talking about a piece of Python code, and you have to go through and you have to figure out what each of the functions do and how that essentially encrypts the flag and how you would reverse that to get it out of there. Essentially, the important thing when you're looking at all the basic reverse engineering challenges is to take it really step by step, in the sense that, now let me go to the whole blog because I have these all written out in steps there. Figuring out what language it's written in. That'll help, especially when you're Googling and trying to figure out what the hell is going on. What do you think the code is supposed to do? For example, a lot of these are you put in some kind of input and the output is either validated and they'll give you the flag, or the input you give is turned into the flag, stuff like that. How does the program know that I am correct or incorrect? How is it doing that validation? That's an important thing to look at because that's what you're trying to reverse. Is there important information hard-coded in the in the program? Things that they have you take a look at are if people have left comments, or that's actually a really big one. For example, when we were talking about using the command line tool strings earlier, if you use that on a compiled program, or I don't know if you can use it on compiled programs? You can, right? Yeah. What it'll output is all the plain text stuff, which could be comments. And people have this bad habit, and as someone who does web application hacking for a living, people have a bad habit of leaving comments in places they shouldn't, with information they shouldn't put there. So that's another thing for you to pay attention to. And then what terms and functions do you know? What do you not know? And what can you Google? The terms and functions, if you know the programming language, it makes it a lot easier. Because, for example, if you know Python, you'll know that the def starts a function or defines a function, and you know how perhaps the ORD call works and stuff like that. And if you don't know what those are, you can generally figure out the patterns that certain programming languages have and be like, that looks important, I should Google that. And if you do, then you may be another step closer to figuring out what the hell is going on. Which is just essentially my entire blog, is what is going on. And what can you Google? You can Google pretty much anything. But if something seems native to the program, and by that I mean if it's a string that says, nope, try again, or it's a print statement, you don't need to know what that does. You have to identify the parts of the program that are important and things that do the actual functions that you need to reverse, identify those, and then kind of cut it down into pieces and figure out what each little piece does to then get you to your answer. And that's a very high-level summary of my blog. If you want to go read it, it is there.
One thing that I do sometimes with both, when I was starting out on the easy and medium ones, I would do this, and I now do it on the harder ones, but it's, don't be afraid to take the program, translate what the functions are doing, and then write it in a programming language or write the reverse of it in a programming language It could be JavaScript doing something to an input string. Well, figure out what it's doing, and maybe you could write the reverse of that in Python. There's a lot of functions that relate to each other. So don't be afraid to try to rewrite the program in something you understand more.
Yeah, I haven't done that before, but that sounds like a good idea for people who are good at coding. I am not. I am actually very bad at it, but it's fine.
So programming is a somewhat essential tool if you want to get into reverse engineering. You can do some of the simpler challenges, especially when they're something like Python, even with very basic programming experience, as long as you can trace through the program. But if you really want to get into it, eventually you have to learn different programming languages. That's not to say you need to learn every programming language, but once you learn a few, even if you encounter a language with which you're not familiar, it'll be easy enough to trace through the program.
Yeah. Computer program literacy. Oh, hello. Hi.
A wildcat appears.
To add on to like Paul's thing real quick, learn assembly language. Like, just learn it. You don't have to be like completely fluent. Start with 64-bit. It's 2020. We're not making 32-bit systems anymore. If you can learn 64-bit, you basically know 32-bit.
Also, it is genuinely easier to reverse engineer a 64-bit Intel program.
Yes, it is. Like,
because the ABIs are the same. You don't have to worry about different calling conventions.
I took a class on like Python for OS hacking. It was a great class. And, like, the instructor was like, and we're doing all this on 64-bit systems because it's 2019 at the time. But like, still, we are not making 32-bit systems anymore. 64-bit is not that much harder to learn. Just start with 64-bit. Also, ARM. Learn ARM at some point.
Learn what?
ARM.
So there isn't just one assembly language. There's, each processor has its own bytecode that it knows, and different families of processors, architectures we'll call them, have slightly different assembly languages, sometimes very different. So the two that you probably deal with most often in your daily life are Intel, x64, what's on your computer, and ARM, which is probably what your phone is running. They're different. ARM is usually what's called RISC, and it's a reduced instruction set something. What does it stand for? So,
yeah, you're right.
It's meant to be simpler. Fewer instructions that do less, that run very fast. Whereas Intel and AMD are the opposite. They have very complex instructions. One instruction might do a lot, and so there are a lot more instructions. So there are two different families of
the quickest thing I can think of for a good example of ARM other than mobile is Raspberry Pis. Those are ARM64.
Yeah. I think
it depends on the generation.
They're ARM64, but I think everything that runs on them is still ARM32 now.
I think it depends on the generation. It's I don't know how backwards compatible some of the newer stuff is.
All right.
But anyway, yeah, that's ARM.
So we've got a couple of questions in the little thing down here. I'm going to see if I can click on them while holding cat. Elizabeth asks, I am using a Kali Linux and a VM. What tools do you recommend for RE? We did mention some of these earlier, but let's list them out again just in case people missed them earlier, because I see some people are just coming on.
Okay, so GDB is one, Radare 2. I'm pretty sure it's default. You can find it by just typing R2. It's easy to get to. I run Ghidra on Kali Linux, but it's just a Java-based program, so you can run it on any OS. So what were some other tools?
XXD was mentioned, which is a hex dump tool. Bless. I don't know if does that ship with Kali?
What is it? I don't use Kali, so like.
Yeah, and neither do I.
Okay.
But Bliss is a popular popular Linux hex editor.
There were strings.
Strings.
That's default on pretty much all Linux. So
Chris George has posted
Yeah.
GDB, Radare 2, OBJ dump,
object.
binwalk.
Yeah.
Binwalk, good for Stego and firmware. Strings, hex rays, IDA Pro, you cannot use.
I have a question. IDA does release a free version of IDA Pro.
Yeah, free one's fine.
Yeah.
Free trials
okay.
are usually fine too, as long as they're not hard to get. So like for Hex Editor, I like 010, which is not free, but there's a free trial that you can use for the duration of a competition. And I've used that for some of the challenges.
I need to get a better Hex Editor.
I've used
really
Hexinator, which is, it's not complicated. It's very simple, but it gets the job done.
I've only used Ghex, which is like the GNOME Hex Editor. Don't use Ghex. I used it for 5 hours on a ROM hacking project. Don't use Ghex.
Oof.
What's nice about... Yeah, you can go.
I was going to say, well, I hope that answers Elizabeth's question on various tools that people can use.
Oh, what is a hex editor? We probably should have answered that.
Oh, yeah.
So files in computers are represented with bytes. A file is just a giant number. And if you're familiar with binary, then you'll know that each byte is made up of 8 bits. And if you had an editor that let you view that as binary, it would be 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. That's hard to work with. So a hex editor encodes all of that as hexadecimal, which is a base 16 representation of numbers. And each byte is represented by 2 hexadecimal digits. Instead of 0 to 9, it's 0 to 9 and A through F, where A is 10, B is 11, etc. And I think we have other episodes that deal more with hexadecimal and what that is. So I won't go into too much detail on binary and hexadecimal, but a hex editor lets you edit a file in hexadecimal, which if you're not dealing with raw text, for example, an executable is not usually raw text. It's usually something that would look all jumbled in a text editor. You need something like a hex editor instead.
All right. So another question we've got here is, what operating system can be used as an alternative to Kali?
For NCL, you can use any operating system. I usually like to challenge myself and switch operating systems each competition. So I rotate between Mac, Windows, and Linux. But you can do the entire competition on any operating system. You really don't need that much more than a web browser.
If you can have a VM of every operating system,
Yeah.
that is like
right.
That's
the more tools you have available, the better.
As
Things
always.
are usually
if you're looking
if you
to
have access
use
to Linux.
If you're looking to use stuff that's on Kali Linux but don't want to use Kali itself, then pretty much any major Linux distro. So Ubuntu, CentOS, Debian, those are good alternatives.
Yeah.
Pretty much Linux-based if you want to use all those command line tools.
Arch Linux might not be the best choice for time management, but it will work.
Yeah.
I have done NCL and Arch. It's possible.
I used to like Arch, and then I just got to the point where I'm like, I don't care about going through the 30 extra minutes to install my system. I just want to have my Linux do its thing.
Yeah.
All right. We've got a question from Logan O. When you do reverse engineering, you normally do this to figure out how it works, along with getting a hash for that program and adding it to antivirus and other systems. You ever, attempt to do easy edits to the malware to get more hashes so you can be ahead of revisions by malicious actors?
If you're talking about hashes in the literal sense, that's probably not going to work well. Typically, malware is run through something called a cryptor, which completely mutates it and makes it difficult to detect. So that probably isn't effective in the real world. if you're looking for, usually you're not dealing with just hashes. You also have something like Yarrow rules, and those are a little more versatile. But the answer to your question is probably no. That being said, I don't actually do native reverse engineering on a regular basis for my job. So
yeah, I don't either, but I would say that, yeah, it's because you make one tiny change to the file and that hash is totally different.
Yeah.
So if you're not anticipating what somebody's going to change, and let's face it, you're not going to be able to anticipate what random character they're going to throw in there. So it's not really effective way. You're better off looking at like runtime analysis of the program and adding heuristics to an antivirus system.
Yeah.
It still works sometimes, though. The first thing you should do is you should always get a hash value on malware. I know that it can change, but like it still is a thing that like even if like a malicious actor is targeting you and like they're using one sample, grab the hash. Maybe it'll stop it from spreading to further systems. Eventually get to the point where you're doing heuristics and Yara rules, but like a hash you can do like with the snap of your fingers and.
But the question was more, can you predict future hashes? And the answer to that is usually no.
Okay. We got another question here. We actually have a lot of questions, so let's see if we can speed through these because I was not expecting this. In the gym, obtaining hints, is it free or do you have to pay extra? I can answer that. No, you do not have to pay extra. When you go to the gym and you go into a singular challenge, there will be on the left-hand like sidebar just a question mark. You click on it, and if there are hints for that challenge, they will pop up there. In the gym, there's also a little like window where you can click to reveal the solution. Also not like pay extra. It's just there for you to use, for you to learn.
That being said, when you're in the actual competition, not the gym, if you are on a competitive team or you're trying to compete as an individual, hints often cost you points, and that could mean the difference between first and second place. But don't worry about that in the gym.
Yeah, I think they were talking about literal money.
Yeah, it'll never cost you actual money.
It never costs you money. No.
Once you pay for that one-time payment for NCL, you're good for the season.
Yeah.
So Tyrone asks, suggestions on where or how to start on learning assembly languages for novices. As I have not learned them, I'm going to get that to y'all.
That's why I was reaching over.
Okay. So
I would also say
one more time. It's from
No Starch Press.
Yeah,
Practical
No Starch
malware
Press.
analysis.
No.
It has a lot about a lot about malware analysis, obviously, but there's a good chunk on assembly.
If you want something in video format, I recommend the YouTube channel Live Overflow. He does very good breaking down simple assembly. He's got a whole series on it. That's where I started.
Now I'm trying to find that book. There it is.
I have some stuff on YouTube with Ghidra. I tend to like kind of like self-promote by accident, but I don't know how good it is for the actual assembly.
Once you learn a little bit of assembly and you're trying to broaden your knowledge, I recommend writing small programs, compiling them with different optimizations, and seeing what you get. That's usually how I broaden my knowledge.
Also, Intel Developer's Manual. That has like a list of all the instructions.
Yeah. And
like you can search it and it'll tell you what its operands are. It'll tell you what it does. It'll tell you if it modifies any special flags on the CPU. ARM also has that if you're doing ARM assembly. I don't know any other assemblies people would be dealing with. Maybe MIPS or PowerPC or Spark. God, who am I kidding? No one's using Spark.
MIPS is a big one for malware at the moment. Was it Mirai that was all MIPS? Yeah.
Mirai was like a combination of stuff since it was like targeting a bunch of IoT thingies.
Right. Which is often MIPS.
Which, yeah, that is MIPS a lot.
It's another one kind of like ARM, used for a lot of embedded tech. Someone asked what MIPS was.
Was the Nintendo Wii MIPS or ARM? Or no, it was actually both because it had a coprocessor.
I have no idea. I know the Xbox 360 was PowerPC. There's another one we didn't mention that you'll probably never see again.
Oh, I actually have a PowerPC machine sitting over on my.
We're off on a tangent there.
I looked. I zoned out for a hot second to look at some questions and answers. I come back and we're talking about Wii's.
You can tell the two of us are fun at parties.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm having a grand old time. Mauve. Oh, that's a dog.
Yep.
We have 2 pets.
They're not on screen, but they're making
here.
their presence heard.
Yes, they are. So Mauve asks, is there a benefit to using the 64-bit binary over the 32-bit? When doing the RE analysis of things. You guys were talking about how
it may be more relevant. Personally, I've dealt more with the 32 bits for these challenges, but as people were saying earlier, 64 is very good to know.
I don't know. The biggest thing being for it's 2020. There's even something in that like it. Paul said earlier about the ABIs for x64 being like more tight knot, but like you're gonna see 64-bit programs more than you are gonna be for 32-bit, but like 64 is good for development. I'm sorry for reading out the 32-bit is slightly simpler, but like again, 64-bit isn't that much harder.
It's often good to compare them. Because there are optimizations that will be used in the 64-bit binary that won't be used in the 32-bit binary and vice versa. So if you find a portion of the binary that you're having a hard time with, oftentimes it's easier to switch over to the other one. Personally, I'm more familiar with 64-bit at this point, so I tend to favor that. But if I get stuck on something, I see some weird optimization that I don't understand and I'm having trouble finding online, I'll switch to the 32-bit one.
All right. Okay, what are some other things? Okay, is having a Kali Raspberry Pi through Ethernet better than a VM Kali?
No.
No.
You're going to have a hard time doing NCL on a Raspberry Pi. It is possible, but it'll be slow.
Yeah, yes and no is the answer to that. Would it be nice on like a pen test if you want to have like a tiny device that you could bring in and obscure? Yes.
Yeah.
Is it helpful when you're trying to run code from a completely different architecture? Nah. Well, I'd feel bad for the person who tries to run Kibu for a 64-bit CPU on an ARM Pi. That would not be fun.
Well, is a VM better or is a Pi better?
VM is better.
Yeah, probably. If your computer is up to date, a VM is probably a better choice.
If your computer has like a 4-core CPU and it's struggling just to use a web browser, you're probably not going to be able to run a VM. Then I guess you could try a Pi, but I would still say just use your native operating system at that point. VM if you can, pretty much.
You can always dual boot.
Yeah.
Live USB, something like that.
Or just set your VM settings to be like less if you're on like an older system, like because you can do VMs on dual core systems and be fine as long as you only give it a single CPU core and like don't expect it to be like running blazing fast, but you can. Most of these tools you're not going to need a lot of, unless you're password cracking, you don't really need like a lot of oomph to do most of this stuff.
That being said, if you're on the go, this is a device you can carry around with you pretty easily. Full computer right there.
Yeah. So we have a question from a user named Bratty. Can you talk? Anyway, you can talk to your peeps about having a way to find out how you got the answer in the gym instead of just the answers. I know you can't do it this game, but next season. I think they're asking whether or not you can talk to people about answers in the gym, which the answer to that is you can't directly tell people the answers, like the literal like solution, but you can always talk to people about methodologies after the games have closed. If you are in the NCL Slack channel or Cyber Skyline, this is
Cyber Skyline.
the Cyber
Skyline.
Skyline Slack channel. After the games have ended, there is going to be a whole channel just for post methodologies, no answers, and people will start posting their write-ups. They're like very broad write-ups for different challenges so that people can learn how to do them, post competition. If there's something that you really got stuck on, always check there because that'll have some really like choice information in it. That's always been really helpful for me.
For the gym, you can talk with your classmates about it though. The only catch is don't publish anything publicly because
Yes.
you are paying for access to the gym. The gym is part of NCL, and we would greatly appreciate if you didn't go posting guides online everywhere. But
it's
you
less of
can
a greatly
talk to each
appreciate
other.
and more like you are not allowed to legally.
Yeah,
So-
Yeah.
but yeah, to help keep costs low as well, please try to avoid sharing it publicly.
Yes.
Yeah, so the gym. Someone mentioned that the gym looks very similar across seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are guides, there are usually challenges that have been retired that have been used in the past. So you should expect it to look similar
Yeah.
if you have been doing NCL before. Just to clarify that.
Someone asks, do you have a club Instagram page? I don't think we do. We have like
Not to
Twitters
my
and
knowledge.
things, but not to my knowledge, we do not have an Instagram. It would be a great place for all of our like animal photos. However, no, we do not. Sorry. And the last question we have here from Dave is, how are the job prospects for RE?
I don't actually know
I
that one.
honestly don't know.
It's such an obscure field that there aren't that many people who are actually truly experts at reverse engineering. It's something that takes an enormous amount of dedication.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a lot of like job openings, but if you do get really, really good at it and you get a job, you have a job for life is kind of what I understand about it.
Pretty much.
It helps a lot if you're in DFIR and know it.
You want to clarify what that
I want
is?
to clarify,
Oh.
yeah.
Digital forensics incident response.
Got you.
Yeah. I know there are government agencies that have reverse engineering teams. At a in-person competition I was at last year, they had someone from the FBI talk about how his job is to reverse engineer malware they find in cases that they're working. So the jobs are out there, but they may not be broadly posted everywhere. So if you're good at it, try to hunt down a job, because there's not that many people who are trying to do this full time and know enough and dedicated enough to do it.
This is why it is important to network with people in security, because that's how you find those extremely niche jobs, is knowing people and knowing people who know people. So just a broad suggestion is try and network. Just kind of talk with everyone. Make sure you like know who your local hacker space is and like reach out to different, I don't know, CTF teams, stuff like that. It's important for the industry.
If you're a pen tester, RE is really important. You can find a lot of like important stuff in applications that a company releases. Like it's like, especially in like Android apps, like since it's Java, it's a lot easier to read Java than assembly. And like I made a joke about like a drinking game in which you go through Android apps and like every time you find a private key or an embedded like API key or something in an app, you take a shot. Like because like this stuff
Didn't
is
you
really
post that on Twitter?
Yep.
Just to clarify, though, what you're actually looking at in a closed source Android application is still bytecode that you're still reverse engineer or you're disassembling to assembly. So it's still assembly. It's just not the same assembly.
You can get it out to Java.
It depends. Not always.
Almost okay. Native code has been the one issue I've ever had, but like 90% of the time you can get Java. I actually have had to reverse engineer Android native code, but for the most, there was also one time I got straight up JavaScript because it was like one of the fancy like frameworks that it like embedded a browser.
Yeah. But if you want to do anything serious with reverse engineering for Android, you still end up needing to be able to work with the bytecode and assembly.
Yeah. So, okay, a couple more questions. These are more like broad. Do we have a Discord server? No.
No.
We just have a Slack channel.
Yeah, there's Slack, the Cyber Skyline Slack. That's where you'll find all of us and a bunch of other players.
Do we have anyone have a link to that off the top of their head?
Cyberskyline.com/Slack, I believe.
I think that's right. Yeah, it sounds familiar.
I'll see if I can find the actual link to it. But
there it is.
Yeah, aha, yes, thank you. Yeah, we don't have a Discord server, but we do have that, which is important. So if you haven't used Slack before, you should download it. It's actually quite useful. You'll find that a lot of people in various workplaces also use it. My job uses it.
Works a lot like Discord. It's pretty much Discord with a different skin.
It's professional Discord.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're both Electron apps.
We have another question from Baretti. Can you tell us if the game is going to be harder than the last game? The one a year ago was much easier. Does each game get harder? So this may be a common misconception. We don't actually have access to the games before anyone else. When the games get released, all of those questions are brand new to us as well. Questions may be reused from like year to year, but even though we're player ambassadors for the NCL, we don't know what's going to happen beforehand. So we can't tell you if it's going to be harder. What we can say, though, is that every year they do try to build more like broader ranges of topics so that people aren't saying the same things over and over again. Like you were talking about, I can't remember what exactly the thing that you had created, Tristan, but it's broadening our horizons for like various RE challenges or open source intelligence stuff. We're essentially just trying to make people learn more stuff as the years go on and as we learn other things. So we don't design the challenges necessarily. We had a opportunity to design challenges for a separate conference thing, but we don't actually design or like help with the challenges for the actual competition.
I do have a theory on why we get this question a lot, though. So,
why do we get this question?
There's a lot of curriculum out there and a lot of resources for a small subset of cybersecurity. For example, for web application security, you get a lot of SQL injection and PHP. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I really like about NCL and Cyber Skyline in general is that their challenges tend to be very modern and very broad. So over time, they started off with a lot of SQL injection and more traditional challenges, but they have branched out to more modern challenges, more different technologies that you'll see in recent applications. And you might not see that in a lot of other CTFs. And if you've been doing seasons in the past and expect to see those same technologies again, you may be surprised.
Yeah, so we can't say it will be harder or easier, but it will be different and have some different skills highlighted. So yeah.
It's not the same content every time.
Yep.
Yeah. That would be boring. So this is actually something. So So I don't know if we want to do a very deep dive onto this one, and there may be other resources where we've talked about this before, like maybe how we became player ambassadors, or our steps into the realm of cybersecurity in general. But Sam asks, please share with us what each of you did for a living and the steps you took to get there. If anyone wants to give a broad overview of what they've got going on and how they got there.
Sure. So right now I work web application security and cyber security engineering. So I got this job through connections I made at the university I went to, and specifically by doing NCL and CTF challenges. That's how I was able to develop and prove my skills. And I used that in my interview, and I got the job because they saw that, hey, you can actually do something. It's not all book knowledge.
My path very broadly was I actually didn't have a background in cybersecurity, and we didn't have classes at my university that I went to. So I essentially, a professor of mine said, "Oh, I think you'd like this," and then suggested the NCL to me. I played that, and I started to learn more about cybersecurity, started doing my own research, and by the end of it, I was doing my final project for graduating on a Metasploit project I was putting together to make remote exploitation easier. Boy, the fact that I can't tell you what my thesis was about is bad, but it was rough, and I'd rather forget it. And then from that point on, I was just kind of searching for various jobs that would take me in and also teach me a lot on how to do what I needed to know, because I didn't get a whole lot of basic education from my university because we didn't have classes for it. But then I found the company that I'm currently working for, and they had a program that was essentially kind of like a internship, but you're a full-time paid employee where they teach you everything you need to know for 6 months. And then they release you onto client projects. And now I am currently doing web application exploitation and some things in a couple of other fields that I'm reaching out into. But that's pretty much how it happened for me. The NCL was a huge factor, can say.
You're up next.
I am.
I'm going to pass on this one.
Okay.
I don't know what to say. I don't think anyone even... I don't have a job at this. I am 16.
I really wanted to hear what your answer was going to be on this one.
I make coffee to be able to put money in savings right now, and I do this for fun. I'm one of those, this is all, I enjoy doing this, and yeah.
He is baby.
I randomly fall into things, and I don't know, I don't even know how to say it.
We grabbed him, and now he's on the NCL player ambassador board.
That's the best description.
I went, yep, you're good. You've done some really good presentations, and you know what you're talking about. You're on the team now. And you went, what? And I was like, yes.
I was sitting in a study hall when I applied for it. I saw that. I'm like, hey, what's the worst that can happen?
The worst that can happen is you're now on a live stream. You have responsibilities now. You write, and thousands of people see it.
Fun.
Yeah, so that is... Okay, we've got one... Okay, I think this is one last... No! Oh, no, I deleted it.
Did you delete it or just mark it as answered?
No, I deleted the question. I'm very sorry to whoever posted that. The question was essentially, because I'd read it before, when you click for, see the solution in the gyms, or if you get a couple of them right and then ask see solution, does it knock off all of the points? You can't like see solutions in the actual like NCL competition, but in the gym it doesn't lose you points or anything, because the gym is literally just for like testing it out, making sure you understand the platform, playing around with different types of topics. If you click reveal solution, you just can read it and see how it goes. But in the actual like games, you can't just like see solution, because that would sort of defeat the purpose. So sorry that I deleted that.
The gym is your chance to learn the interface, so don't be afraid to click buttons. You still, if it tells you not to use automated tools, don't use automated tools. But other than that, as long as you're not trying to hack it or anything, click all the buttons, figure out how it works. This is the gym. It's practice. So now's your chance to make mistakes.
Yep. And I think that's all the questions we have currently. That was a lot more than I was expecting. That's great. I love to see a very interactive audience when we're talking about a lot of things. Is there any parting words you all would like to give the audience?
I have two.
Okay.
The Toulon didn't read Learn Assembly, and I wasn't voluntold. Like, I am not here against my will.
Yeah, he's not here against his will. He applied, I interviewed him, and he's good at what he does. He was not voluntold. He's here because he deserves to be here. And anyway.
You're saying that there's not somebody forcing you on the other side of the camera to do this?
Yeah, there's an awful lot of you that we can't see right now.
Yes.
You can pretty much see the entirety of this room, except for there's like a couch that has my second base sitting against it. That's all.
Nice. Blink 2 times if you're there against your will.
I think those are guard dogs barking earlier.
Really, I'm an evil. I like, we have a team of superheroes that they've put out on all of the marketing materials, but in reality, I'm like an evil villain, and I have taken all of my like teammates and like stored them away in my secret lair and have them write things. Yeah, obviously this is.
Can you tell we're getting tired?
Normally we hit this point a lot earlier in stream, so I'm very glad that we have done how well we've done. But yeah. Jacob, Paul, anything you want to add?
Have fun.
Yeah,
Okay.
Have fun in the gym and get swole.
Perfect. Nice. Yes, minions, begin your evil laughter.
All right, we should end this before we all fall over laughing.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So it was great to see everyone. Good talking with y'all as well. I actually learned some stuff that I didn't know previously. So yay! Glad I wasn't the only one hosting this. That would have been bad. But yeah, it's great to see y'all. Come back next week for every single time. We don't look before we say this line. Everything you need to know about the National Cyber League preseason game. I don't know who's hosting that. Does anyone know? I
can check.
Perfect. There will be other people hosting it next week, and you'll be able to ask all the questions you need to know about the preseason. Preseason is important. Just as a heads up, you do have to participate in it. This is something you will learn during the live stream, but we'll talk about that next week. As far as the rest of it, have a good rest of your night, depending on, or evening, or afternoon, or wherever the hell you are. And adios. Everybody wave. As I stop the broadcast.